And as the federal government says it is working to inject sanity into the social media space, which it claims has gone out of control, more people have continued to criticize that move. Civil society organizations have picked holes in the attempt to regulate the social and traditional media to combat hate speech. TVC News senior political correspondent Ayodele Ozubakun examines the issues surrounding the proposed regulations by government.
The federal government of Nigeria in October announced that online news platforms would now be regulated. As part of their regulations, government approved the upward review of fines from 500,000 naira to 5 million naira for hate speech offences. Government also made amendments to the NBC Act to enable the agency license web TV and radio stations, as well as permit foreign broadcasters to beam signals into Nigeria.
No responsible government will sit by and allow fake news and hate speech to rule the airwaves because of the capacity of this menace to exploit our national fault lines, to set us against each other and trigger a national conflagration. And that is why we will continue to evolve ways to tackle fake news and hate speech until we banish both.
This move has not gone down well with civil society organizations and human rights activists in the country. For the former president of the West African Bar Association, Femi Falana, no government can stop Nigerians from exercising freedom of expression as guaranteed in the 1999 Constitution.
No law. Nigerians will not allow the people in government to use the machinery of the government to harass their political opponents. As far back as 1983, the Court of Appeal decided in the case of Otto Nwankwo and the state that if anybody feels offended by any publication, he should file an action in court to defend his reputation. But that our freedom of speech, our freedom of expression will be eroded if public officers are allowed to use the provisions of the law on sedition, criminal libel, and the rest of them to harass their political opponent, as it is the case now.
Veteran journalist Richard Akinola says Section 22 of the 1999 Constitution, as amended, gave the mass media the obligation to hold governments at all levels accountable.
So why should criticism now be equated to hate speech? So it's totally unacceptable. And unfortunately, the person who is talking about trying to legislate against hate speech on social media, of course, was corporate in court of the same offense 4 or 5 years ago.
The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, had last week decried the alleged tightening of the screws on the coffin of media freedom in Nigeria. The executive director of the group, Adetokunbo Momuni, indicted the federal and the state government for attempts to muzzle the press.
Cutting into the civil space by the state and the federal government. They want to muzzle and contract the civic space. They are trying to do monumental danger to democracy. And that is why we launched this, so that Nigerians will be put on notice well ahead of time, so that we take and hold this government accountable, so that things don't degenerate, so that our democracy will not be eroded.
However, the federal government insists that it has no intention of muzzling the media or stifling free speech. But critics are skeptical about government sincerity after a recent clampdown on some journalists. Ayodele Ozubakun, TVC News, Lagos.